The Ugly Duckling is probably one of the most depressing and emotional Disney shorts that I've seen. Partly because The Ugly Duckling is so adorable. This is, of course, the 1939 Disney short that was directed by Jack Cutting and Clyde Geronimi, and is, of course, based on The Ugly Duckling story by Hans Christian Andersen. This is actually slightly different to the story I'm familiar with, but I believe it's much more akin to the Hans Christian Andersen version. And I'm sure you're very much aware of what this is about. It's about a little duckling who is considered to be ugly, even though he is absolutely adorable here. And he's basically, rejected by the people who are supposed to be there for him, the other ducks. And, well, I'm about to tell you how it ends. I guess this is a bit of a spoiler, but basically, he actually ends up in the wrong place. And this little duckling is born alongside these other lovely little, yellow fluffy ducks. And he's born there. And then it turns out, as the film progresses, that the egg shouldn't have been there. And he actually belonged to a different family because he was a little cygnet. And he was supposed to have been with the swan family. So goodness knows what had been going on with that egg and how it ended up in the wrong place. It is kind of suggested that the mother duck was having an affair, and that's kind of what the father duck is saying, because when this little duckling is born, the father starts to argue with the mother, kind of saying, how could we have a child that is a cygnet? How could it look like this? We can't produce this together. So it's kind of disturbing in that respect. But the so-called ugly duckling goes on his little journey for about 6 or 7 minutes, being rejected by everybody. He kind of finds kinship in this like wooden duck that's in the water, which is a shame. And there's a very cute moment though where he spins his tail like a propeller, and it propels him around the water. I particularly like that bit of animation. What makes this different though to the song version, at least, is that he didn't grow up in the film. He didn't grow up to be a beautiful swan. He remained a cygnet, and he joined the other cygnets with the swan. And I like this better. And as I said, I think this is actually what the Hans Christian Andersen version is like. But in other traditional versions, the ugly duckling grows up to be a beautiful swan. And it's kind of a story of, well, you may be ugly now, but one day you're going to grow into your looks. Which is actually not a nice message when you think of it. Whereas this one, he's being accepted for who he is. And he has found his people. And it doesn't matter what he looks like or what he is like as a duck. There are ducks out there just like him. And I think that's absolutely lovely. It's a really beautiful story. The only thing that I guess is the problem is that the ugly duckling isn't ugly. He is ridiculously adorable. There's a moment where he's crying and I just started to well up. It's beautiful. It's very good. The sound effects are great. Clarence Nash did the sound of the duck, apparently, which I particularly like. He's known as the original voice of Donald Duck, so it made perfect sense that would be a thing as well. It's lovely. It's very sweet. As far as silly symphonies go, I feel like it's one of the least unique and the most normal. A lot of the silly symphonies are now very questionable. Some of them have very odd morals, 80 years after the fact. But this one actually feels quite safe, and is one that I think everybody could watch without being scarred. Maybe emotionally a little bit, but it's a lovely, fun, short little film. It's 8 minutes, and I just can't fault it. I think it's beautiful. It's really emotional. It packs a lot into 8 minutes. The Ugly Duckling is not ugly, but I like the message here better than the, I guess, more recent version of him growing up to be a swan. We know that's what will happen eventually, but I'm glad he didn't change who he was. I think he is adorable. The Ugly Duckling as a short is just as cute.